Welcome, sleepy thinkers and curious souls. Find a soft place to land where the questions are big and the pace is slow enough not to jolt you out of your pillow cocoon. Tonight we will drift through a great silence, listening for whispers carried on the sands of time. We will tiptoe into one of the most mysterious questions ever asked. How did the ancient Egyptians, without iron tools or modern machinery, build monuments so precise that they seem to hold the very language of the universe? This is not a race through equations or a frantic dash for answers. It is more like floating through a galaxy of ideas with a cup of chamomile tea. We will honor the mystery as much as the knowledge, for perhaps the most beautiful part of this journey is not what we discover, but the vast, quiet space of what we still don't know. So close your eyes and let's begin our slow, gentle descent into the heart of ancient Giza. Imagine, if you will, a great stone dream rising from the desert floor. It is not just a building. It is a whisper made solid, a memory etched in limestone. When we stand before the Great Pyramids, we are not just looking at rock and mortar. We are looking at a story, a riddle, a testament to something immense that we have almost forgotten. This is the place where the sun first kissed the earth in a new dawn, and where the first kings dreamed of touching the sky. This is Giza, a plateau of silent giants where time itself seems to have paused. The air here, though dry and warm, carries the weight of thousands of years. It feels as if every grain of sand holds a memory, a lost voice, a thought from a builder long turned to dust. What then is the context of this place? It is a silence so profound that it begs us to listen. It is a stillness so powerful that it invites us to move our minds across its vast angular surfaces. It is a landscape that feels both deeply familiar and utterly alien, a place where our modern world melts away, leaving us alone with the stars and the stones. The Great Pyramids have stood for over 4.5 millennia, watching the rise and fall of empires, the invention of writing the birth of gods, and the coming of new ones. They have endured floods, earthquakes, and the simple patient erosion of wind and sand. They are not just monuments. They are survivors teaching us a lesson in permanence. But the real journey begins not with what we see, but with the questions that rumble beneath the surface. We see the final product, the polished, elegant geometry, but we want to know what it felt like to build it. We want to know what the builders thought, what they knew, and what they believed. We are not just archaeologists of the physical world, but archaeologists of the human mind, sifting through the dusty records of history and the silent testimony of the stones themselves. Tonight, we are going to explore the possibility that these stones are not just a record of manual labor, but a repository of a profound and elegant understanding of the cosmos. We will begin by accepting a central paradox. The tools were simple, but the knowledge was not. They had no iron chisels, no cranes, no computers. Their materials were rope wood and stone. Yet the structures they created are so precise that modern laser measurements struggle to find flaws. The sides of the Great Pyramid of Khufu are aligned to true north with an accuracy that seems almost impossible. Its base is a square so perfect that the difference between its longest and shortest sides is a mere matter of centimeters across hundreds of meters. How could they have done this? What kind of minds? What kind of culture could produce such a feat? Perhaps the secret lies not in the brute force of 1,000 laborers, but in the quiet elegance of an idea. Maybe the true wonder of the pyramids is not the stone at all, but the unseen scaffolding of knowledge, mathematics, and spiritual belief that guided every cut, every lift, every careful placement. Maybe the pyramids are a physical manifestation of a beautiful internal world. A world where numbers were not just tools for counting, but a divine language. A world where the stars were not just lights in the sky, but a map for the soul. A world where architecture, religion, and science were not separate disciplines, but a single interwoven tapestry. Let's allow ourselves to be captivated by this idea, to simply wonder at the possibility. This isn't a battle against modern science. It is a gentle dance with it. We will not discard what we know, but we will look at it through a softer, more imaginative lens. We will think about the builders not as nameless drones, but as people with dreams, with a deep connection to their world, and with a brilliant practical understanding of how to shape it. They were not just stacking stones. They were building a bridge to eternity, a stairway to the heavens, and a reflection of the order they saw in the universe around them. So let's allow our minds to float gently over the golden sands of Giza. We will not hurry. We will simply let the stillness of this ancient place settle into our thoughts. We will let the silent weight of these stone mountains soothe our restless minds. And as we do, perhaps we will begin to hear the quiet echoes of a time when the earth and the sky were more intimately connected, and when the language of numbers felt a little bit more like poetry. Let's start with the very foundation of this beautiful knowledge, the silent language of numbers that they seem to understand so well. Imagine the quiet dedication of a single scribe sitting cross-legged in a sun-drenched room, dipping a reed pen into a pot of ink. He isn't writing a poem or a tale of a king's battle. He is writing numbers. He is charting a world where the Nile floods, where the grain must be counted, and where the land must be measured. For the ancient Egyptians, mathematics wasn't an abstract puzzle to be solved in an ivory tower. It was the rhythm of their life, the very heartbeat of their civilization. Their number system, like ours, was based on the power of 10. It was simple, elegant, and profoundly practical. They had special symbols for 1, for 10, for 100, for 1,000, and even for 1,000,000. It was a beautiful and intuitive way to write down large values, which made the monumental task of organizing immense construction projects, like the pyramids, not just possible, but manageable. The Great Pyramid itself, the very subject of our journey, is a testament to this mathematical confidence. Its vast scale, its uncountable blocks, its precise angles. All of it was first conceived, not in stone, but in the careful measured calculations of these brilliant minds. They had to be able to account for every block, every cubit of stone, and every worker. They had to plan for the movement of materials, the allocation of resources, and the very shape of the structure itself. Without a deep and practical understanding of numbers, the Great Pyramid would have remained a beautiful idea, never to be realized in the physical world. The true genius of their system was its adaptability. It wasn't just for grand projects. It was for the everyday. When the Nile would flood its banks each year, the water would recede, leaving a new fertile layer of silt, but it would also wash away the markers that separated one farmer's land from another's. And so the land had to be remeasured. The Egyptian mathematicians, the surveyors of the land, would come with their ropes and their tools, and they would use their knowledge of geometry to carefully and justly divide the land anew. This wasn't a punishment. It was a ritual, a yearly act of renewal and order, all thanks to the power of numbers. The pyramids, in a way, are the ultimate expression of this ritual. They are the land remeasured not for a single season, but for eternity. They are the ultimate marker, a fixed point in a world of flux. Their foundation is a testament to a perfectly level, perfectly square space, a kind of idealized garden from which the pharaoh's soul could rise. The numbers, the geometry, the symbols, all of it came together not just to build a tomb, but to create a permanent, beautiful, and mathematical world that would endure long after the fertile silt of the Nile had been forgotten. So, as we close this first chapter, let's leave our modern worries behind. Let's imagine a world where numbers were not just cold hard facts, but the warm, familiar rhythm of life. A world where counting was a form of worship, where measurement was an act of justice, and where the greatest monuments were built, not with machines, but with minds that saw the universe reflected in every line, every angle, and every perfect quiet number. Let's drift slowly now into a more specific corner of their brilliant minds, a place where numbers gave birth to shapes and spaces. The ancient Egyptians didn't just understand counting. They were masters of geometry, the quiet, elegant language of forms. For them, geometry was not a distant, theoretical puzzle. It was a hands-on, deeply practical way of life. It was a tool they used to bring order to a world that could at times feel chaotic. Imagine for a moment the quiet drama of the Nile. Each year it would swell an immense and life-giving force, spreading its dark fertile silt across the valley floor. But when the water receded, it took with it the markers, the small stones or posts that separated one farmer's field from another. The carefully drawn lines were erased, and the community was left with a blank canvas of mud. It was here, in this annual act of renewal, that the Egyptians' genius for geometry truly shined. They would have used simple tools, a measuring rope, perhaps marked with knots at regular intervals. With this, they could remeasure and redivide the land with astonishing precision. They knew how to calculate the area of a rectangle, the foundation of every field. They could master the triangle, a shape that for them was not just an idea, but a practical solution. They understood that to find the area of a triangle, you simply had to take half of its base and multiply it by its height. This simple, elegant formula was the key to reestablishing order and fairness, ensuring that every farmer received the land that was rightfully theirs. This wasn't just math. It was a form of social justice, a yearly reaffirmation of their society's harmony. This understanding extended far beyond fields and farms. It was the very soul of their architecture. To design and construct their massive stone monuments, like the temples and the pyramids, they needed to be able to calculate volumes. They knew how to measure the volume of a cylinder, a shape they used in columns and other structures. They understood how to work with slopes and angles, creating forms that were not only beautiful to behold, but were also structurally sound, able to bear the immense weight of countless tons of stone. This deep, intuitive understanding of geometry was the bedrock of their greatest creations. It was the silent, invisible blueprint that guided every worker and every stone. It was the reason why the Great Pyramid's base is a nearly perfect square, and why its sloping sides rise with such graceful, unwavering consistency. It was the reason why it has stood for millennia, a testament not just to their power, but to their quiet mastery of shapes and space. Now let's turn our attention to another elegant facet of their mathematical thought, their grasp of a kind of practical algebra. They didn't solve equations with the symbols and letters that we use today. There were no X's or Y's. Instead, they had a more direct, intuitive approach. They could solve problems and work with fractions in a way that was surprisingly advanced for their time. Their fractions were a unique and beautiful concept. They almost always used unit fractions that had a 1 as the top number. So instead of writing down a fraction like 3/4, they would express it as a combination of unit fractions, a half plus a fourth. This might seem cumbersome to us today, but it was a clever and deeply logical system for them. It was as if they saw every fraction as a part of a whole, a sum of many smaller, simple pieces. This kind of thinking was profoundly useful in a society where goods had to be divided and shared. Imagine a baker with 5 loaves of bread that he needs to divide among 8 workers. Without our modern decimal system, this could be a difficult problem. But with their system of unit fractions, they could solve it with a quiet, elegant precision, ensuring that every worker received their fair share. The surviving mathematical documents from ancient Egypt, like the famous Rind papyrus, give us a rare glimpse into this world of numbers. As we gently turn the pages of these ancient texts in our imagination, we can almost see the minds of the scribes at work. We can see them solving complex problems involving the sharing of goods, the planning of massive building projects, and the simple everyday arithmetic of a civilization built on order and balance. The Rind papyrus isn't just a collection of equations. It's a window into a way of thinking, a way of seeing the world through the quiet, elegant power of numbers. It's a treasure map not to gold, but to the very soul of their intellectual life. It's tempting to think of this as a dry academic subject, but let's remember the context. This mathematics was alive. It was the rhythmic drumbeat that accompanied the construction of the temples. It was the silent song of the surveyor's ropes in the fertile mud of the Nile. It was the steady, calm voice that brought reason and fairness to the division of resources. It wasn't just a collection of formulas. It was a way to make sense of the world, to bring the beautiful and perfect order of the abstract into the messy, complicated reality of daily life. Let's pause here for a moment and simply breathe in the grandeur of this idea. A civilization that saw no rigid separation between the sacred and the practical. A civilization where the same mathematical principles used to measure a farmer's field were used to design a monument that reached for the stars. It's as if their minds saw the same geometric patterns in the growth of a plant, the flow of a river, and the design of their greatest buildings. They didn't just create a number system. They created a beautiful integrated way of understanding their world. The Great Pyramid stands as the ultimate proof of this integration. It is a work of staggering human effort, of course, but it is also a work of staggering human intellect. It is a monument that speaks the quiet language of geometry, a language that was born in the fields of the Nile and matured under the brilliant, endless canvas of the desert sky. It reminds us that true genius often lies not in having the most complex tools, but in having the most profound and elegant ideas. This kind of mastery, this deep and practical command of the world of numbers, is a beautiful and humbling thing to contemplate. It challenges our modern assumptions about what was possible thousands of years ago. It asks us to look at a simple tool like a knotted rope, not as just a rope, but as a kind of ancient calculator, a portable font of geometric wisdom. It asks us to see a scribe's papyrus not as a dusty relic, but as a living document of a brilliant, thriving intellectual tradition. So as we drift to a close in this chapter, let's imagine ourselves standing on the Giza Plateau, the sun setting casting long dramatic shadows across the sand. We are not just looking at a tomb, we are looking at a mathematical poem written in stone. A quiet, elegant verse that speaks of the beauty of order, the power of knowledge, and the enduring wonder of the human mind. The pyramids are a testament to the fact that with just a handful of simple ideas and a great deal of patience and ingenuity, it is possible to build something that reaches for eternity. We will carry this feeling with us as we move to our next idea. We will hold on to the image of the geometrician with his knotted rope, the scribe with his reed pen, and the builder with his perfectly carved stone. For all of them were part of the same quiet, harmonious chorus, a song of numbers and shapes that echoes through the silence of the ages. The Great Pyramid is the ultimate expression of that song, a melody of stone and light that has outlasted empires and generations, standing as a quiet, graceful testament to the beautiful, practical genius of the ancient Egyptians. Let's now gently float into a more poetic and mysterious realm of their knowledge. We've spoken of simple geometry and practical mathematics, but what if the builders of the pyramids were also in tune with a deeper, more beautiful language? A language that whispered of harmony of nature and of the cosmos itself. We are speaking of the golden ratio and the constant we know as pi. Imagine the golden ratio not as a cold abstract number, which is approximately 1.618, but as a kind of silent song woven into the fabric of the universe. It is a number that appears again and again in nature, a kind of blueprint for beauty. You can find it in the graceful spiral of a seashell, in the delicate arrangement of a flower's petals, and even in the proportions of the human body. It is a visual rhythm, a harmonious flow that our eyes find inherently pleasing. It's the kind of number that feels less like a discovery and more like a gentle echo of an ancient natural truth. The ancient Egyptians, though they likely didn't write it down as a formula like we do today, seem to have had an intuitive sense of this ratio's power. They understood its elegance and its usefulness. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as a testament to this, as its proportions match the golden ratio with astonishing closeness. If you were to take the slanted side of the pyramid and compare it to half of its base, you would find a number that is incredibly close to this special golden number. It's a geometric dance between stone and light, a quiet whisper that says, I am built not just for strength, but for beauty. But what if they also had an awareness of another cosmic number 1 that helps us understand the nature of circles and spheres? We're talking, of course, about pi. This number, approximately 3.41559, is the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. It's another of the universe's great simple truths. We know from ancient papyrus documents that the Egyptians had a very good working value for pi, which they calculated to be about 3.16. This was an astonishingly accurate approximation for its time, showing a profound grasp of how this number behaves. And then there is the most curious connection of all, a puzzle that has fascinated scholars for centuries. If you take the total distance around the base of the Great Pyramid and divide it by its height, you get a number that is very, very close to 2xp. Let's pause for a moment and really let that thought settle in. The builders of this monument thousands of years ago seemed to have incorporated this famous mathematical constant into the very design of their structure. So here we are standing on the quiet desert floor, gazing up at this immense stone mountain, and we are left with a beautiful question. Were these mathematical relationships a happy accident, a natural consequence of their building methods? Or were they intentionally included, a kind of hidden message woven into the stones, revealing a deep and almost spiritual understanding of the universe? There are some who believe it was a simple result of their tools. Perhaps they argue the builders used large measuring wheels to lay out the pyramid's base. This would have naturally led to a relationship between circles and the perimeter of the square base, which in turn could have accidentally reflected the value of pi. This is a wonderfully elegant and practical theory, and it honors their hands-on, ingenious approach to engineering. But there are others who believe it was no accident at all. They see these numbers as a deliberate choice, a kind of sacred geometry. For them, the pyramid is not just a tomb, but a physical representation of the universe's order. It is a structure that quietly whispers the divine language of numbers, a language that connects the earthly square of its base with the eternal circle of the cosmos. It suggests a civilization that saw no separation between science, art, religion, and the cosmos itself. It speaks of a people who believed that by building with these special numbers, they were creating something that was not only structurally sound, but also spiritually harmonious, whether intentional or not. The fact that these numbers appear in one of the most famous structures on Earth is a breathtaking coincidence. It adds a layer of mystery and wonder to the quiet stones of Giza. It reminds us that there is still so much we don't know, so much we can only speculate about. And perhaps that's the most beautiful part of all. The mystery itself is an invitation to simply wonder, to let our minds drift, and to contemplate a time when the lines between what was known and what was sacred were blurred. As we close this chapter, let's leave the pyramid standing in our imagination, not as a cold, imposing tomb, but as a warm, humming repository of ancient knowledge. Let's imagine it as a kind of giant, silent musical instrument, playing a low, continuous note of pi and the golden ratio, a song of cosmic harmony that has been playing for thousands of years, waiting for us to finally hear its quiet, beautiful melody. Let's turn our gaze from the silent numbers etched into the stone and look up toward the endless tapestry of the night sky. For the ancient Egyptians, the stars were not just distant pinpricks of light. They were a living, breathing map of the heavens, a celestial blueprint that held the secrets of life, death, and eternity. We are now drifting into the most breathtaking mystery of all. The pyramids were not just monuments to the earth, but also to the sky. Imagine standing on the Giza Plateau thousands of years ago with no city lights to wash out the stars. The sky would have been an immense, dazzling dome, a clockwork of celestial motion. And the ancient architects of the pyramids, with no compasses, no GPS, and no modern surveying equipment, somehow managed to align their immense creations with the four cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, with a mind-boggling degree of precision. The sides of the Great Pyramid of Khufu, in particular, are so perfectly aligned with true north that they are off by a tiny fraction of a single degree. This level of accuracy would be difficult to achieve even today with our advanced technology. How did they do it? What was their method? Perhaps they didn't just look at the stars, but truly read them. They may have spent years, even decades, observing the stars that never set the circumpolar stars that slowly rotate around the celestial North Pole. By watching their gentle, unwavering dance in the night sky, they could have pinpointed the exact unmoving point of true north with stunning accuracy. It was a kind of cosmic patience, a deep communion with the heavens that was necessary to lay the very first stone of the Great Pyramid. But the connection to the stars doesn't end there. As we float inside the pyramids, we discover something even more profound. Deep within the Great Pyramid, there are narrow passages often called air shafts, though that is a practical modern name that misses their true purpose. These are not for ventilation. They are cosmic portals. The northern shaft of the King's Chamber points directly toward a star called Thuban, which was the North Star during the era of the pyramid's construction. This was no coincidence. It was a deliberate choice, a spiritual pathway carved into the stone. It was meant to guide the pharaoh's soul after death to join the eternal circumpolar stars that were so sacred to the Egyptians. The southern shaft, on the other hand, points to the stars of Orion's belt, a constellation linked to the god Osiris, the lord of the underworld, and the god of resurrection. The pharaoh in death was believed to become one with Osiris, and this shaft was a kind of spiritual highway, a one-way path for the king's soul to make its divine journey into the heavens. These shafts were a physical manifestation of a spiritual belief, a beautiful and poignant marriage of astronomy and religion. They remind us that for the Egyptians, the stars were not just points of light. They were a home, a destination, and a source of eternal life. And what of the three Great Pyramids themselves? We have long gazed upon their arrangement on the Giza Plateau, and we have noticed something intriguing. Their layout in a kind of gentle diagonal seems to mirror the three stars that make up Orion's belt. While this idea is still debated among historians, it is a beautiful and compelling thought. Imagine the architects of the pyramids looking up at the night sky and seeing their gods, their destiny, their very sense of order reflected in the stars. And then, with immense patience and skill, they decided to build a reflection of that celestial pattern on the earth itself. They were creating a kind of sacred geometry on a grand scale, aligning the world below with the world above. The more we study the alignment of these pyramids, the more we are humbled by the knowledge of the ancient builders. They had a patience and a precision that seems almost alien to our modern hurried minds. They saw the sky not just as a pretty backdrop, but as a map, a calendar, and a spiritual guide. The Great Pyramid, with its flawless alignment, is a kind of cosmic anchor, a fixed point on Earth that is perfectly tethered to the eternal dance of the heavens. It stands as a testament to a civilization that believed the greatest monument they could build was one that spoke the language of the stars. It was a culture that believed a king's journey to eternity was not a journey into the ground, but a graceful star-filled ascent into the sky. This deep astronomical knowledge had practical applications as well. By watching the movements of the stars, they could create a remarkably accurate calendar, which was essential for a civilization whose very lifeblood, the flooding of the Nile, was tied to the rhythms of the heavens. So the pyramids are not just tombs. They are also ancient observatories, quiet giants that patiently watch the sky year after year, century after century. They are a kind of stone-etched clock, marking the passing of seasons and the eternal cycles of the universe. And so, as we conclude this chapter, let's close our eyes and imagine ourselves standing on the Giza Plateau once more, but this time at night. We feel the dry, warm air on our skin, and we see the immense, star-filled sky above. We see the three pyramids dark and silent, as if they are three earthly mirrors reflecting the three bright stars of Orion's belt. We imagine the ancient builders with their patient, observant eyes reading the sky like a book, and then, with immense love and dedication, building a monument that was not just for a king, but for the cosmos itself. The pyramids are a testament to the fact that when we look up at the stars, we are not just looking at a distant light, but we are looking into the quiet, beautiful heart of our own history. Having explored the cosmic poetry and mathematical harmony of the pyramids, let's now descend back to Earth, to the hands and minds that brought these ideas into solid form. We are going to gently explore the question of how they did it, not through the lens of mystery, but through the quiet brilliance of simple yet incredibly effective tools and techniques. Imagine a builder on the Giza Plateau, not as a master architect with grand visions, but as a craftsman with a job to do. What was in his hands? Not steel, not cranes, but objects of beautiful simplicity. He would have held a copper chisel, a tool that seems far too soft to carve the hard stone of the desert. But for the local limestone, a relatively soft rock, it was perfect. The chisel would have been used with a wooden mallet, a rhythmic tap-tapping sound that would have echoed across the vast construction site for decades. It was a language of patience, a conversation between wood, copper, and stone, slowly, carefully shaping the rough into the refined. For more delicate work, like smoothing a surface or ensuring a perfect fit, they used sand, specifically quartz sand from the desert, which is harder than both copper and limestone. They would rub 2 blocks together with sand in between a slow, painstaking dance that wore away the stone until the surfaces were flat and true. This was not a quick process, but it was an act of profound dedication, a commitment to precision that we can still see in the razor-thin gaps between the stones today. But how did they ensure that everything was perfectly straight and level? For this, they turned to a teacher that is older than the pyramids themselves: gravity. They used a simple tool called a plumb bob, nothing more than a weight on a string. Because gravity always pulls straight down, this tool allowed them to create a perfectly vertical line, a kind of eternal, unwavering guide. Builders could hold this string against the face of a stone block to ensure it was perfectly straight, or use it to lay out the corners of a wall. It was a tool of elegant truth, showing them the way to create a structure that would rise straight and tall toward the heavens. To build a square base to get those perfect right angles, they used an even more ingenious trick. They had a special rope, tied with knots to form a triangle with sides in a 3-4-5 ratio. When a triangle has sides in this exact proportion, the corner between the 2 shorter sides is always a perfect 90-degree angle. This method, known today as the Pythagorean theorem, was a kind of secret formula, a magic spell that allowed them to draw perfect right angles on the ground with nothing more than a knotted rope. It was a physical manifestation of a geometric truth, a simple tool that held a profound idea. But before a single stone was laid, the ground itself had to be prepared. If the base of the pyramid was crooked, the entire structure would be off, so the builders had to ensure that the bedrock was perfectly level. How did they achieve this across an area larger than 5 football fields? Their solution was brilliant. They dug shallow channels around the base and filled them with water. Because water always finds its own level, they could use its perfectly flat surface as a reference. Wherever the water was, they knew the ground was even. They would then chisel away the high spots until the entire foundation matched the water level, achieving a level of accuracy that is still breathtaking to contemplate. It was this kind of quiet, humble ingenuity that was the true genius of the pyramids. Not a flash of modern technology, but a patient, respectful understanding of the natural world. They didn't fight against gravity. They worked with it, using it as a guide. They didn't need lasers to find a flat surface. They used water, one of the simplest and most truthful elements. They saw the truth in a knotted rope, the power in a handful of sand, and the elegance in a weight on a string. And what about their system of measurement? It was based on something profoundly human: the body, their standard unit. The royal cubit was based on the length of a pharaoh's forearm from the elbow to the fingertips. This wasn't just a random measurement. It was a sacred unit, a reflection of the divine body of the king. but it was also intensely practical. By using smaller units like the palm and the digit, they could keep measurements consistent across the entire construction site. Whether a stone was cut in one quarry or another, it would still fit perfectly when placed into the pyramid. It was a system that was both deeply personal and universally understood, a beautiful blend of the spiritual and the practical. As we conclude this chapter, let's leave the grand questions of Pi and the stars for a moment and simply honor the quiet skill of the ancient builders. Let's imagine the feel of the wooden mallet in their hand, the patient scrape of sand against stone, the unwavering line of a plumb bob against the vast desert sky. They were not just laborers. They were artists, engineers, and philosophers, all rolled into one. Their tools were simple, but their minds were not. And with those simple tools and brilliant minds, they built something that has outlasted empires and generations, a testament to the enduring power of human ingenuity and a gentle, quiet reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most profound. Let's now shift our focus from the quiet genius of tools and drift toward the heart of the project itself, the people. For a long time, the prevailing wisdom held that the pyramids were built by slaves toiling under the brutal sun in a kind of ancient forced labor. But as we gently peel back the layers of history, we find a story that is far more nuanced, far more human, and in many ways, far more awe-inspiring. This chapter is about the builders themselves and the magnificent system of cooperation that made the impossible possible. Imagine not a silent, shuffling army of the enslaved, but a vibrant, organized community of workers, all with a shared sense of purpose. Recent archaeological discoveries, including the remains of workers' villages near the Giza Plateau, have painted a very different picture. These were not just random peasants. They were a skilled, dedicated, and well-fed crew. The villages had bakeries, breweries, and even medical clinics, suggesting a level of care and organization that goes far beyond simple forced labor. These were people with a job to do a job they were clearly proud of. Who were these people? They were a mix of full-time stonemasons, carpenters, and artisans, but the majority of the workforce was likely made up of ordinary people, particularly farmers. For a few months each year, when the Nile flooded and their farmland was submerged, they would be called to serve the pharaoh. This wasn't a punishment. It was an honor, a communal act of service to their god-king, a way to contribute to a project that would ensure not just the pharaoh's eternal life, but the prosperity and stability of the entire nation. The work itself was organized with a breathtaking level of sophistication. The workforce wasn't a chaotic mob. It was a well-oiled machine divided into teams with specific roles. There were the quarry teams who cut the stone, the transport teams who moved it, and the masonry teams who carefully placed each block. Each group was a part of a larger whole, a single synchronized body, working toward a grand unified vision. It was a symphony of labor, with each team playing its part in perfect harmony. But the real mystery, the most fascinating part of this story, is not just who they were, but how they did it. We have already spoken of the simple tools, but let's explore the theories of how they used those tools on such a massive scale. Let's imagine each theory not as a dry academic argument, but as a kind of ancient fable, a possible truth waiting to be discovered. First, there is the most widely accepted and poetic theory, the external ramp. Imagine the pyramid not as a static object, but as a living thing growing taller with each passing year. As it grew, a massive ramp made of mud bricks and earth would spiral around it like a giant man-made mountain path. It would have been a long, gentle slope, wide enough for teams of workers to pull the heavy stone blocks on wooden sleds. The genius of this idea is its elegant simplicity. No cranes, no complex machines, just a kind of giant spiraling staircase made of dirt. It was a path that they built to heaven, one stone at a time. The work would have been backbreaking, of course, but it was a clear, logical way to get stones to the top, a kind of unending upward march of human effort and cooperation. Then there is a more recent and intriguing theory which suggests the ramp was not on the outside, but on the inside, Imagine a hidden spiral staircase winding its way up through the very core of the pyramid itself. Workers would have pulled the stones up this internal path, all while the outer casing of the pyramid was being laid down. This theory is particularly compelling because it could explain how the builders were able to maintain the pyramid's perfect shape and angles all the way to the top. The internal ramp would have served as a kind of structural scaffold, a hidden bone structure that guided the growth of the stone skin. When the pyramid was finished, the ramp would simply be sealed a silent internal secret, a ghost of its own construction. And what about the movement of the stones themselves? While the ramps and sleds were vital, some theories suggest an even more clever use of physics. Imagine the use of counterweights and levers, a kind of ancient dance with gravity. Long wooden beams would have acted as giant seesaws. By placing a heavy stone on one end as a counterweight, a smaller team of workers could lift another massive block on the opposite end. It was a way to amplify human strength, a kind of quiet magic that turned a few men into the muscle of 100. This would have been particularly useful for the very top of the pyramid, where the external ramps might have become too steep or too unstable. There is also the elegant and still debated theory that the Egyptians may have used some form of ancient concrete. Imagine the builders not just cutting and placing stones, but mixing a kind of paste of crushed limestone water and other minerals, and then pouring it into wooden molds right on the pyramid itself. The stones we see today, according to this theory, are not just carved blocks, but a kind of man-made poured stone. This idea would explain the incredible precision of the fit between the blocks, and it would also have made the process faster and more efficient. While many archaeologists still believe the stones were carved and transported in the traditional way, it is a fascinating and beautiful idea, a kind of ancient chemistry that turned the very dust of the desert into a monumental, eternal creation. Each of these theories, each of these ancient fables tells a different story. But they all share a common thread. They all honor the immense ingenuity and cooperation of the ancient Egyptians. They show us that the true marvel of the pyramids lies not in some lost magical technology, but in the power of human collaboration. Thousands of people, from farmers to stonemasons, all working together with a single vision, a single purpose, and a shared belief. As we conclude this chapter, let's leave behind the image of the slave and embrace the image of the builder. Let's imagine the sounds of their work, the rhythmic chant as they pulled the ropes, the joyful shouts as a new stone was put into place, the quiet hum of a community working together in perfect, elegant harmony. The pyramids are not just a monument to a king. They are a monument to the human spirit, a testament to what is possible when we come together not just with muscle, but with minds and hearts to build something truly grand. As we journey deeper into the heart of the Great Pyramid, let's explore the silent, unwritten story held within its stones. This chapter is a meditation on the materials, craftsmanship, and architecture, the physical reality of a dream made solid. It is about how the ancient Egyptians chose their canvas and how they painted their masterpiece with an astonishing level of detail and care. Imagine, if you will, the two primary building materials, not just as rock, but as two different characters in the same play. There was the humble local limestone and the majestic distant granite. Most of the pyramid, its great bulk and mass, was built from limestone, a material that was plentiful and relatively easy to cut and shape. It was the workhorse of the pyramid, the silent, unassuming muscle of the entire structure. The chisels of the workers would have whispered against its surface, slowly, patiently, coaxing it into the shape they desired. It was the material that allowed the pyramid to grow layer by layer, a testament to the immense power of simple, repeated actions. But for the most sacred and important spaces, the builders turned to a very different kind of stone. They used granite, a rock that is incredibly hard and durable, a stone that seemed to hold the very essence of eternity. This was not a local stone. It had to be brought from Aswan, a city more than 500 miles to the south, a journey that would have been an epic in itself. Imagine the immense effort required to quarry these massive blocks, some weighing as much as 70 tons, to float them on massive wooden boats down the great flowing highway of the Nile, and then to haul them to the Giza Plateau. This was not a choice of convenience. It was a choice of profound intention. They chose granite for the king's chamber and for the intricate roofing beams, for they knew that this stone, so unyielding and so magnificent, was worthy of housing the immortal body of their pharaoh. The craftsmanship itself is a kind of poetry. When we look at the stones today, thousands of years after they were placed, we can still see the silent evidence of the builder's skill. The joints between the stones are so perfect, so incredibly tight, that in many places you cannot even slip a thin knife blade between them. This was not the work of machines. It was the work of hands of patience, of a relentless dedication to perfection. They would have used sand and water to grind the surfaces of the stones against each other, a slow, painstaking process that resulted in a fit so precise it seems almost impossible. This was not just building, it was an act of profound artistry, a kind of stone-on-stone dance that created a seamless, beautiful, and utterly permanent whole. And let's not forget the final elegant touch, the outer casing stones. When the Great Pyramid was first completed, it was not the rough-stepped mountain we see today. It was covered in a layer of smooth, gleaming white limestone, polished to a mirror-like finish. From a distance, it would have been a dazzling sight, a perfect glowing triangle of light that sparkled in the desert sun. It was a kind of beacon, a brilliant shining star on earth, a testament to the power and glory of the pharaoh. Over the centuries, most of these stones were lost to earthquakes and erosion, but a few still remain at the base, giving us a ghost of a memory of its original breathtaking beauty. Now let's gently peer inside into the quiet, dark spaces of the pyramid's core. Here we find some of the most ingenious architectural solutions. We are speaking of the relieving chambers above the king's chamber. These are 5 empty rooms, stacked one on top of the other, each one built with massive granite beams. They were not for burial or for treasure. They were a work of pure engineering genius. The enormous weight of the pyramid above would have crushed the chamber below, but these relieving chambers were designed to take that weight and push it out away from the chamber and toward the sides of the pyramid. They were a kind of stone umbrella, a brilliant invisible shield of physics and geometry, ensuring that the most sacred space of all would remain safe for eternity. It is a quiet, elegant solution to a massive problem, a testament to the foresight and understanding of the pyramid's architects. But for all its craftsmanship and ingenious solutions, the inside of the Great Pyramid holds a final breathtaking mystery: its silence. Unlike many other ancient tombs, which were filled with vibrant paintings, intricate carvings, and beautiful hieroglyphics, telling the story of the pharaoh's life and journey, the interior of the Great Pyramid is bare. The walls of the king's chamber and the grand gallery are made of undecorated, silent stone. Why, what could possibly explain this absence of art and story in a tomb built for a king who was believed to become a god? Perhaps the pyramid itself was the story. Perhaps the structure in its immense size and perfect geometry was the message. It was a monument that spoke not through words and pictures, but through its very existence. It was a testament to the power of the pharaoh, a physical manifestation of his journey to eternity, so grand and so perfect that no words were needed. It was an ultimate expression of form over function, a beautiful and humbling silence that speaks volumes more than any carving or painting ever could. As we conclude this chapter, let's leave the silent stones of the pyramid and let the quiet awe of their craftsmanship settle in our hearts. Let's imagine the feel of the granite from Aswan, the gleam of the polished casing stones, and the ingenious hidden architecture of the relieving chambers. The pyramids are not just a magnificent achievement of engineering. They are a masterpiece of artistic intention, a silent, beautiful, and eternal poem written in stone. And as we carry this feeling with us, let's remember that the greatest stories are sometimes not told in words, but are felt in the silent, profound presence of a truly great work of art. Having marveled at the physical genius of the pyramids, let's now journey into the heart of their spiritual purpose. We must remember that for the ancient Egyptians, these monuments were far more than clever feats of engineering or beautiful works of art. They were in the most profound sense machines for the afterlife, a bridge between the world of the living and the realm of the gods. This chapter is a gentle exploration of their deepest beliefs, the ancient dreams that gave birth to these stone giants. Imagine the pyramid not as a static, unmoving object, but as a living symbol, humming with a powerful spiritual energy. In Egyptian mythology, the world was born from a watery chaos, and the very first land to rise from these primordial waters was a mound, a kind of eternal hill. The pyramid, with its broad base rooted firmly in the earth and its single point reaching for the sky, was a physical manifestation of this primordial mound. It was a recreation of the very first moment of creation, a place where the pharaoh, the god-king, could begin his journey anew, rising from the chaotic waters of death and into the light of a new life. It was a cosmic cradle, a sacred hill of creation, built to be a silent promise of rebirth. But the most beautiful and poignant belief was that the pyramid was a kind of stairway to the heavens. The sloping sides of the pyramid, particularly the smooth, polished sides of the Great Pyramid, were thought to represent the rays of the sun stretching down from the sky to the earth. The pharaoh after death was believed to become one with the sun god Ra, and the pyramid was his final elegant ascent. His soul would climb these rays of light, using them as a kind of ladder to rise from his tomb and join the gods in the eternal endless sky. This was a physical pathway to a spiritual destination, a beautiful blend of myth and architecture, a grand and hopeful farewell to a king. We have already spoken of the mysterious narrow shafts that point toward the stars. Now let's explore their purpose through the lens of belief. These were not just astronomical pointers. They were pathways for the pharaoh's soul. The shaft that pointed to the circumpolar stars, those never-dying stars that never set below the horizon, was a kind of spiritual tether, an anchor to eternal life. The shaft that pointed to Orion's belt, the constellation of Osiris, was the pharaoh's final destination, the home of the god of the afterlife. The pyramid was a carefully designed celestial compass, a spiritual GPS created to ensure that the pharaoh's soul would not wander aimlessly in the afterlife, but would find its way home to its place among the gods and the stars. The pyramid was not built alone. It was the centerpiece of a grand complex, a kind of sacred city for the dead. Surrounding the main pyramid were smaller pyramids for queens' temples, for ceremonies and chapels where priests would leave offerings and perform rituals to keep the pharaoh's memory alive. The entire complex was a bustling living community dedicated to a single eternal purpose to ensure the pharaoh's immortality. It was a reflection of the profound Egyptian belief that death was not an end, but simply a new beginning, a beautiful transition into a richer, more powerful existence. The pharaoh himself was seen as a god on earth, a living embodiment of order and cosmic harmony. The pyramid, in its perfect geometry and celestial alignment, was a physical reflection of this divine order. By building a structure that was so perfect, so balanced, and so aligned with the heavens, they were not just building a tomb. They were strengthening the pharaoh's connection to the divine. They were building a kind of ritual machine, a sacred device that would ensure the eternal life of their god-king, and by extension, the prosperity and stability of their entire world. The pyramid then was not a dark and somber place. It was a place of profound hope, a symbol of eternal life, a promise of rebirth. It was a structure that quietly, patiently waited for a soul to make its final journey, and then it would open its arms and its sacred pathways to guide it home. The stones themselves, the very material of the earth, were transformed into something celestial, something divine. The pyramid was a testament to a civilization that saw no separation between the earth and the heavens, and believed that with a little bit of faith and a lot of ingenuity, it was possible to build a bridge to eternity. As we conclude this chapter, let's take a moment to appreciate this beautiful blend of the practical and the sacred. The same minds that so brilliantly mastered geometry and measurement were the same minds that dreamed of sun-filled stairways and star-filled journeys. The same hands that so patiently placed each stone were the same hands that were building a home for a soul. The pyramids are a testament to the fact that the greatest human achievements are often born not just from a desire for power or glory, but from a profound and beautiful faith in something greater than ourselves. Let's let this quiet, powerful feeling of hope and wonder gently guide us to sleep as we imagine a world where the lines between science and spirit were beautifully, gracefully blurred. Let's now turn our gentle gaze toward the world of modern discovery, where science and mystery meet and the quiet stones of the pyramids begin to whisper new secrets. We are going to drift through some of the most fascinating and unconventional theories and look at how today's technology is helping us re-examine what we thought we knew. This chapter is about the echoes of ancient knowledge and the beautiful ongoing conversation between the past and the present. Imagine the pyramid not just as a static object, but as a kind of giant sleeping machine. For decades, scientists have been using modern tools to look at it in ways the ancient builders could never have imagined. One of the most intriguing findings has come from a field of study called ground-penetrating radar. This technology allows us to see beneath the surface of the Earth, like a kind of sonic X-ray for the ground. With it, researchers have discovered not just the foundations of the pyramids, but also the remains of the ancient workers' villages, the quarries, and the very ground they prepared. It's a kind of digital excavation, a way of seeing the pyramid's story, not just in the stones that stand, but in the earth that supports them. But the real mystery lies in what's being found inside the pyramids. Using cosmic ray muon tomography, a technology that uses tiny particles from space to scan solid objects, scientists have been able to look right through the massive stone blocks. It's like a magical X-ray that can see into the heart of the pyramid without moving a single stone. And with this technology, they have discovered something breathtaking, a large hidden void, a kind of empty space deep inside the Great Pyramid that no one knew was there. We don't know what it is. It could be a new chamber, or a hidden passageway, or simply a part of the construction that we don't understand. But it is a beautiful reminder that even after thousands of years of study, the pyramids still hold secrets waiting to be found. And what about the theories that take us a little further out into the realm of the imagination? Let's treat them not as facts, but as beautiful possibilities, as whispers of a world we've forgotten. There are some who believe that the pyramids are not just monuments, but are in some way energy machines. This idea suggests that the pyramid shape itself, with its unique geometry and its massive stone material, might act as a kind of antenna, collecting and focusing electromagnetic energy from the earth and the sky. Imagine the pyramid not as a dead object, but as a kind of giant battery humming with a low cosmic frequency. Scientists have in fact observed strange electromagnetic effects around the pyramid, particularly in its inner chambers, suggesting that there is something unique about how it interacts with the invisible forces of the universe. There are also those who look at the incredible precision of the pyramids and wonder if they are not the result of human labor at all, but of a kind of lost advanced technology. This is the realm of the ancient aliens theory, an idea that suggests that beings from other worlds shared their technology or their knowledge with the ancient Egyptians. We will gently acknowledge this idea, but we will quickly come back to the quiet brilliance of humanity. For in the minds of most scientists, the pyramids are a testament not to the power of aliens, but to the power of the human mind itself. The pyramids are a symbol of human ingenuity, patience, and a deep intuitive understanding of physics, mathematics, and the natural world. And what about the other great structures of the ancient world? Are they connected? We've looked at the Great Pyramid, but what about the massive stone circle of Stonehenge in England? or the great earth mounds of Cahokia in North America, or the intricate stone temples of Machu Picchu in Peru. These cultures were separated by vast oceans and thousands of years, and yet their monuments all share a common thread. They are all massive, they are all built with incredible precision, and they are all aligned with the movements of the stars, the sun, and the moon. Is this a coincidence, or does it point to a shared universal human desire? Perhaps no matter where we are on Earth, we are all inspired by the same beautiful sky. Perhaps we are all driven by the same desire to connect our lives to the vast eternal rhythms of the cosmos. The Great Pyramids in this light are not just an Egyptian monument. They are a universal monument, a part of a beautiful global symphony of stone and stars, a chorus of ancient voices, all singing the same song of awe and wonder. As we conclude this chapter, let's hold these new ideas gently in our minds. Let's remember that the pyramids are not just a story from the past, but are a living, breathing part of the present. They are still teaching us, still holding secrets, and still challenging us to think bigger, to imagine more, and to look at the world around us with a deeper sense of curiosity and awe. The past is not gone. It is simply waiting for us to find the right tools and the right mindset to hear its quiet, beautiful whisper. We have come to the end of our slow, gentle journey. We have drifted through the poetry of numbers, the silent wisdom of the stars, and the quiet dedication of the builders. We have peered into the spiritual heart of the pyramids and listened to the new whispers of modern science. Now let's bring all of these threads together, not for a grand conclusion, but for a final contemplative meditation on the enduring legacy of these magnificent stone mountains. The Great Pyramid of Giza is more than just a tomb for a long-dead king. It is a monument to the very essence of human potential. It is a testament to the fact that with simple tools and a profound unified vision, it is possible to build something that outlasts empires and transcends time itself. The pyramids are a testament to the power of mathematics, a physical poem written in the language of numbers, angles, and ratios. They remind us that for the ancient Egyptians, math was not just a tool for counting, but a way of understanding the beautiful, elegant order of the universe. And what of the builders themselves? We have learned to see them not as nameless slaves, but as skilled, dedicated, and well-organized people working together in a powerful act of communal service. The pyramids are a monument to their patience, their ingenuity, and their unwavering faith in a shared purpose. They stand as a silent, powerful argument for the strength of human cooperation, a beautiful and humbling reminder of what we can achieve when we work together. The spiritual meaning of the pyramids is a final, beautiful layer to this story. They were not just buildings. They were sacred machines designed to guide a king's soul on its final journey to the stars. They were a physical expression of a civilization's deepest hopes and beliefs, a monument to the idea that death is not an end, but simply a new beginning. They are a timeless echo of a culture that saw no rigid line between the earth and the heavens, but believed they were beautifully, intimately connected. And so, as we look at the pyramids today, we are left with a kind of beautiful paradox. They are the most studied monuments on Earth, and yet they are still filled with mystery. We know so much about them, from the materials they used to the ratios they seem to understand, but there is still so much we don't know. The pyramids are a final, great, unanswered question, a beautiful, eternal riddle, and perhaps that is their true legacy. They are not just answers etched in stone. They are an invitation to wonder. They stand as a silent, powerful challenge to our modern world. In an age of instant gratification and rapid change, the pyramids stand as a quiet testament to the power of patience. In an age of hyper-specialization, they remind us of a time when art, science, and religion were all part of the same beautiful, unified conversation. And in an age where we can build taller and bigger, they remind us that true greatness is measured not just in height, but in intention, in precision, and in the quiet, elegant beauty of an idea. The Great Pyramid of Giza will always be one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. But its true wonder lies not in its size, but in its ability to inspire. It inspires us to look up at the stars and wonder what they truly mean. It inspires us to look at a simple rock and wonder at the story it holds. It inspires us to look at each other and remember the immense, beautiful power of human cooperation. And most of all, it inspires us to keep asking questions, to keep seeking, and to never lose our sense of awe and wonder at the mysteries that still lie hidden in the quiet corners of our world. So as we bring our journey to a gentle close, let's imagine ourselves standing one last time on the Giza Plateau. The sun is setting, painting the silent stones in shades of gold and rose. We feel a profound sense of peace and of connection. The mysteries have not been solved, but they have been honored. The questions have not been answered, but they have been felt. And as the stars begin to emerge in the darkening sky, one by one, we see the pyramids not just as a monument to a pharaoh, but as a silent, beautiful monument to us all. Let these final gentle thoughts of wonder and ancient beauty guide you now into a peaceful and restorative sleep. Good night.